Shana Tovah. Jews are a people that take pride that we have a lot of opinions. We joke that when there are two Jews in one room, there must be 4 opinions. We joke that if a Jew is left in a deserted island, there will be 2 synagogues, one to attend, one not to attend. It's no wonder that Jewish sacred scriptures from the beginning is filled with conflicts, with contradictions, and with arguments. We are called the people of the book after the Hebrew Bible. And in the Bible, many of us believe that the first 5 books that we call the Torah, or the 5 books of Moses, were actually given to Moses by God on top of Mount Sinai. But even those 5 books are filled with contradictions and conflicts and arguments. From the beginning, in the book of Genesis, we find 2 stories of creation, extremely different. The way humanity was created is different, the way the world was created is different, and the theology is extremely different. We believe that the most sacred part of the Torah is the 2 tablets of covenant, the 10 commandments. They appear twice in the 5 books of Moses, once in Exodus, the second time in Deuteronomy, and guess what? Not the same text. And there's even theological differences between the 2 texts of the 10 commandments. So why do we have so many arguments? Why are there so many contradictions in our sacred scriptures? The Torah is an impossible law book by purpose. It's filled with contradictions. It's multi-voices and it's diverse. And there are conflicts, contradictions, and arguments on every given subject in the Torah, beginning with the mundane thing of what is the correct date to celebrate Passover or Sukkot or Shavuot. There are 3 different dates contradicting one another for Passover. There are 2 different ways to look at Passover, and it's not the same holiday. There are conflicts. What are we allowed to eat and what are we not allowed to eat? The name of God is not the same. Anything you choose, there are arguments and conflicts in the Torah. And all of that is done on purpose. The writers of the Torah wanted us to realize that God speaks in many voices, and we definitely hear God in different ways. The writers of the Torah did not want to undermine the fact that God left us with an extremely pluralistic and diverse book with different theologies and different laws. It's like telling us or shouting at us, there are many openings to God. There are many ways to walk with God. And there's no need for all of us to have the same ideas, the same beliefs, and the same actions. And since from the beginning until today, we find so many conflicts and contradictions in arguments, then obviously each one of us comes to the Torah, comes and stands before God equally, and finds different relevance in the Torah. And this is one of the major things that marks the history of the Jewish people, of who we are. I want to share with you one of the most important arguments in our history, an argument that should be our North Star, should be inspiring our society. And if we actually will be inspired by it, that could serve as a healing to our divided and splitted society here in the United States. You find the story in your handouts, but I will tell you the shorter version. The story is about an argument, a controversy between the school of Hillel and the school of Shammai. They argue for 3 years, but they don't argue about a specific thing, about a specific law or a specific belief. They argue about everything. The school of Shammai claims that Jewish law is always according to them, and the school of Hillel claims that Jewish law is always according to them, which means that they both agree on one thing, that there's only one way to interpret what God wants from us. There's only one way to serve God. There's only one way to be Jewish, and there's only one truth. Now, one can just imagine, we know from scholars and from rabbinical sources that Jewish society in that time was just as split as our society is today, maybe even more divided. We actually know that for a short time there was a civil war between the school of Shammai and the school of Hillel. So can you imagine the confusion of everybody for 3 years, not knowing what are you supposed to do? Are they right, or are the other side is right? So God decides to intervene, and a heavenly voice comes with actually a very confusing message. The heavenly voice says the following: these and these are the words of the living God, and the law is according to the house of Hillel. At first glance, that is really confusing, because if they are both right, if these and these are the words of the living God, why do I have to go by Hillel? You know, most Jews that I know, when they go to a rabbi and they get an answer that they don't like, they go to the next rabbi until they find the rabbi that tells them what they want to hear. Why couldn't God say that that's the correct way? You want to go in this issue according to Hillel, choose Hillel. You want to go according to Shammai, then go according to Shammai. Why, if both are true, we have to go according to Hillel? And here comes the inspiring part. Shammai, the school of Shammai, the school that we're not supposed to follow, was actually like us. How do they come to their conclusions? How do they came to their conclusions? They only study the Torah of themselves. They only study what the school of Shammai has to say, and then they came to a conclusion. Why am I comparing us to them? Because most of us, including myself, we only listen to the news that we know will say what we agree with. We only read the newspapers that we agree with the op-ed that is there, and we know that the news will be to our liking. Even our social media, we make sure that no one that we don't agree with will be saying anything there. We only want to be convinced by what we already know and think and agree. How did the school of Hillel study? First, they studied the words of Shammai. Then they studied their own Torah, and then they made their decision, what's the right answer. Now we know that they were just as arrogant as the students of Shammai. They also claimed that the Torah is always like them, but they had enough intellectual courage, enough intellectual integrity, and enough intellectual curiosity to start by learning what the other side has to say. And the fascinating thing is, as many scholars have written books about, is that there are hundreds and hundreds of cases where the students of Hillel started with one opinion and changed their mind after studying the words of Shammai. The best rabbis in the school of Shammai started as students of Hillel. but they were convinced when they heard the other side. No one ever left the school of Shammai to move to Hillel, because if you only listen to yourself, you never convince that the other person has a point. All of us know a school of Hillel. Almost at every American university, even in Bellarmine and in U of L, we have a house of Hillel named because the school of Hillel inspired us. But how many of us, honestly, with integrity, can say, I am actually like the students of Hillel. I am really open to listen to opinions that are different than mine, that are opposing mine, and I'm even willing to change my mind because of the opinion of the person that I normally disagree with. And let us think, what would acting like the students of Hillel do to our divided and split society? Shana Tovah.